Gundam.tk presents Berga Giros. Hey again everybody, it's Robert184, 2Rs2Bs, GundamReviews.net, and you've seen everything there is to see for the 1/100th Berga Giros, from the unboxed, to the plates, to the parts, to the mobile suit itself, and now I made a list of all the good and bad things. You can guess that there's going to be quite a few bad things for an old 91 kit like this, but let's get right to it so that you can make your own call whether this is something you want to add to your collection. So let's start at the bottom and work our way up. First of all, the ankles are not going to work all that well. They do have a large range of motion, but because you can move the upper legs, you can't really take advantage of that, and even then they're not going to sit flat properly. You're also going to have these purple parts, which I'd really say are probably one of the best features, but then you've got these ugly seals up there which are not going to help. And something, if you may have seen from the earlier construction video when I actually snapped it together, the hips don't fit all that well, and it's a little bit hard, I don't know why, to have the left and the right leg be perfectly symmetrical, which is just something that's a little bit strange. For the waist and the chest to be expected or connected, I suppose that's okay, except you can't get any movement at all in terms of rotating up there. As well, you've got hard skirts on the back, and the front skirts don't move at all, so I don't know why they're independent if they're not going to do anything. For the shoulders, they're very limited because you have to be very careful. They've got that long pole that's going to stick in to keep it on, but if you do anything with them, they're very easy to fall off. The shoulders haven't fallen off, so that's a little bit of a bonus, but you're also going to have these parts over here which are just going to get in the way if you're trying to put the shield on, and then you're also not going to have seals that come all the way down to the wrists or to cover the wrists, which is the way that they should. The biggest complaint though about the seals is just going to be that those ugly ones on the chest are going to look pretty terrible. They're peeling up and bubbling all over the place. Why anybody would think that a seal is going to look good on a very round and interestingly shaped part is beyond me. But anyway, unless you want to, if you want to just go paint that with a little bit of purple paint, something you can easily deal with, but it's just unfortunate that you really have to do something about it. Also up on the head, you're going to get the color differentiation even if you don't paint these things in yellow, but it's not going to be the right colors, and this guy really should be yellow, so it really should be done there. Once you get to the other parts, these things on the back, the shelf nozzles have no articulation whatsoever. You can bend them back 90 degrees and you can rotate them up and down, but if you're looking for anything dynamic or sweeping or anything that looks like this to suggest that this guy's anything other than a brick who just stands there, you'd be misleading yourself. The shield is also going to be problematic because it's got those parts that separate it, but I thought a centimeter would be enough. It's obviously nowhere near that unless you're going to put it in a pose like this. It can barely go in an up-down position because these shoulders protrude too much. The flap is only going to get in the way, so either a smaller shield or just a better mechanism, something with a little bit more thought, would have been greatly appreciated. But the biggest disappointment in terms of the weaponry has to be just this shot lancer. Just the way it's not going to stay in unless you put in any sort of sticky tack or just something. If you want to go glue it into the hand, you wouldn't be far off. You have this part which fits on poorly. This part is not going to grasp or do anything to the forearm to keep it in place. You'd think that they could have even just put a peg on there or something that would have kept it in hand. The whole idea of the shot lancer, I believe, was that the hands are supposed to be free so that they could hold another weapon. Anyway, that's not going to happen here in plastic model form, but you've got a peg over there to plug in the shield. Why not have one over here for the shot lancer? And for the head, if it had a little bit of purple trim, if these had purple trim on the back, they'd be that much better. And especially up there on the forehead, you could really bring this guy to life. So color issues, when you combine that with the fact that it's not posable at all, what did I do? I had the shield down, I had the shield up. You can't really move it across, and the shot lancer is only going to get an 80-degree bend. The legs don't bend well, the elbows don't bend well, they don't even turn well if you want to do that. If you didn't have the mobility in the shoulders, you'd really be stuck with one pose, and that would just be him standing there awkwardly going, "Yes, I'm from 1991. With a shot lancer barely being held in place, remember that this thing's going to come back and get in the way unless you sweep these wings up and out of the way. And also one other negative is just that those things are on such a poor polycap that they can fall out at the drop of a hat. But I gotta get off the bad things and on to the good things, and there are quite a few. The first one being just the color scheme. I like the blue and the purple, and you're actually going to get a lot of purple on the front of the kit, which is sort of a plus. You get these two down there, or the two parts down on the legs. The chest is going to look good if you can get past the seal aspect. The neck is alright, but probably the best part is just those little thrusters that are sticking out in purple on the side skirts and rear skirts. And it just sort of brings this guy to life. You're going to have to add the yellow up there if you really want to make this guy pop, but that's something that's pretty easy with just a little bit of a base coat and then some yellow on top of it. They're also going to give you these seals for the Crossbone Vanguard. I've loved that symbol, whether it's from Crossbone Gundam or F91. I think it looks great. It's a little bit unfortunate that they're on the side instead of the front, but it's still better to have them there than not, because that's also going to add some much needed color to this guy. Speaking of color, up in the head, you're going to have the blue eyes, and actually I think those clear blue eyes are great and something I'd like to see on more Gundams. Again, it really suits the whole Crossbone Vanguard theme. They've all got those Darth Vader type masks. And anyway, I just think having the eyes stand out in a different color, they just look a little bit creepy, and I think that's the impact that the Black Vanguard would want to have on people that see them. In terms of the shield, I do like the idea of it, if not the execution. If you put a seal on there, it's going to look a little bit better, but it's got some good separation while it still looks like it's actually got a generator that's holding it on. And if you just look at the Shock Lancer as a weapon instead of trying to actually use it, I think it's a pretty cool idea. It's got that wrist mount, it's got a big part over here, it's got a hand grip, and then it's got this part, which if you just add a little bit of color, can bring it to life, and it actually has that little tiny bit of playability, as cheesy as it is, when you stretch it forward. Now, something else that's a bonus is that I actually just enjoyed this manual. It's old school, but it's got a lot of interesting information about F91 and the Crossbone Vanguard, this mobile suit, Zabine Charles, and little things like the height comparisons showing off the different Gundams from F91, something that you have to do usually in model form, but here they're going to do it for you. It's going to show off the head and all of its details there, and anyway, it was just a lot of fun, easy to follow. There are a few knocks against it. It's not going to give you a color guide that actually shows you colors, it's only in words, so you'll have to translate that, or at least just figure it out. And here, they're all going to give you these water decals. If you want to put those on, you could really make this guy pop, because on the side of the package, they are going to show him, and he looks really detailed just with all those colors all over the place. But for me, I'll stick with the midnight blue and purple with that little bit of yellow and the red seals there. So there are a few bonuses, but the biggest one, and this is something that you may be a little bit surprised at, the reason why I like this kit in terms of visuals is just these simple gray pipes. The shoulders are cartoony and oversized there, and as a squat guy, it's not bad to have his shoulders stick out there, as wide as he is tall. But if they didn't have those pipes on there, if they didn't have anything to bring them to life, I'd say they'd be incredibly dull. The F91 had its numbers on there, and those look great in that old school font. But here to actually have the pipes and have them overlap with each other, and they just sort of look complicated, and they add that other color variation. For me, the shoulders and the head, if you put that little bit of purple on along with the yellow, I think you could actually look at this guy and say he looks pretty sharp, as long as you're not looking at the poses. So my overall verdict is just going to factor in two things, or a couple things. The first one being that he looks okay in terms of colors, and he's good for the price. So he's only 1,000 yen, and I've seen a lot worse kits for a lot more money than this guy. However, overall, I'm going to say that this guy, you can give him a pass, because it's just not particularly fun to put together. Outside of the shoulders, there's really nothing interesting, and perhaps the Shot Lancer. There's too many problems with the engineering, too many problems with the execution. The weapons don't work effectively, the poses don't work at all. There's too many color apps that are missing. The seals are going to look pretty ugly, and if you don't add those yellow parts up there for the V-fins or Captain America wings, he's basically going to look incredibly dull. So even though I'd give it a pass in a general sense, if you are collecting on a theme, whether you love the Crossbone Vanguard, F91, you like 1/100 the bad guys, or if you just like Zabine Charles or Crossbone Gundam, things like that, well then of course you can pick it up, because for 1,000 yen, as long as you're not paying collector prices, you can't really go that wrong. Now especially if you wanted to take the time to paint this guy up properly, and there's a lot of pros out there on YouTube that can really do this stuff and do it fantastically, I think you could actually have a lot of fun with this kit if you can get past the fact that you can't do any posing. So if you want to go even further and mod the joints to actually make it, well, today's high-grade standards as opposed to the old-school non-grades, you could have a lot of fun. Now for me, I'm actually happy to have it, just to have Zabine Charles in both of his, because I'm going to call him the lead bad guy, or as close as you're going to get to it, instead of the F91's red base. And of course the X2 is a lot easier to build than any of the mobile armors that showed up at the end of Crossbone Gundam. So Zabine Charles is certainly a good addition to any bad guy's rogue gallery. And also, if you're going to play Gundam vs. Gundam, this guy is actually a lot of fun to play for 1,000. He's got a lot of things that are going to stun your enemy. Now, of course, when you get in with a 1,000-point Gundam, you can't really expect to nail all that much damage, but if your partner can get in there and start laying down some smack as you just stun guys left, right, and center, he's actually a lot of fun. In terms of future speculation, you gotta wonder if we'll ever see another kit of the Berga Giros, considering that the X2 just seemingly, they've already got the Master Grade Crossbone Gundam, it's come out in a couple variations. If they haven't made an X2, would they really go back and make his earlier suit? you have to wonder. So anyway, the only thing that I think could swing it in its favor is the whole idea of Extreme Versus. If it's popular enough, then maybe there's a lot of kits from here, or a lot of MSs from here that could actually get master grade kits, and maybe that will still be a dream. However, in terms of high grade Universal Century, Bandai has not gone there with the smaller, later UC kits after about 100 or so. Once the mobile suits started getting down to the 15-meter range, they just stopped getting models. And I'm talking about Victory Gundam, Crossbone Gundam, and F91. So if we don't get an F91, I don't think we'll get that, but if we did, every once in a while, as technology gets better and better, maybe it will be possible, because this guy would actually be really cute to have as an HGUC. So in the meantime, for 1,000 yen, is he worth picking up? If you're a big fan of the Berga Giros, I'd say yes, or if you're collecting a theme, but otherwise, you can give it a pass. But hey, that's just my opinion, so why don't you let me know yours with a comment down below. If you've built old kits, if you painted it, if you've modded it, I'd love to hear from you. How does it stack up compared to other old stuff and other stuff from F91, other old non-grade 1/100s? Would love to hear from you, and of course, whatever you want to say about the Crossbone X2 as well. Anyway, everybody, Robert1D4, Gundam.tk, thanks for checking this out. I'll have more reviews of new bad guys, old bad guys, and of course, lots of new good guys too. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time. Lots more to come.